We are on the afternoon break in the questioning of Mike Dell, the former Detective Chief Inspector of the Special Demonstrations Squad from 2001 until 2005. I was clearly getting ahead of myself at lunchtime, where I said that there would just be further questions and it shouldn't take too long. The follow-up questions that Sarah Hemway had have taken the last hour and a quarter. We're now having a 20-minute break, and further questions will take place after it. I'm joined by Evelyn Ubbers of the Undercover Research Group. We have covered a lot of detail. There's been a lot of things we've been taken back to, a lot of just one follow-up question to that whole area. So there's so many areas covered. I don't know if we'll be able to get through it all. What stands out for you?
The circling around the Charles de Mendes' campaign.
Yes.
Where we were first shown a piece of paper that said, "Spike up, you're nowhere. You're not going anywhere near the Charles de Mendes campaign." And then the next minute he said it was never talked about.
So what we saw was you were not to that. It was a direct order that was given to Robert Hastings, and that was written down in his schedule of activities that he wasn't to get in, put himself in a position to receive any legally privileged and professional privileged information. We then saw the Operation Hearn interview with Carlos Sorachi, where he said that he was told by Mike Dell not to go anywhere near it.
Yeah.
To which Dell said, "Oh no, the thing was not to get in yourself position to receive any legally privileged material. Actually, reporting on the campaign was fine." He justified the reporting on the campaign a few times while we were taking through reports.
Which is again spying on a grieving family, making it more political than it was. Well, it was political enough because Charles de Mendes was shot 11 times based on intelligence that he was one of the, or had something to do with the 7/7 bombings, which turned out to be totally wrong. And the police, the police tried to talk to the Metropolitan Police tried to talk themselves out of it just after the murder, saying, refusing to admit that they had been totally wrong. And what it makes you think, that hearing about all the mistaken information that went into reports and wasn't corrected, maybe the intelligence that he had anything to do with the bombings was coming from the STS. You just don't know. You just don't know. We've seen so many cases where entirely unproved stuff, made up intelligence, went into reports and was disseminated at the risk of shootings like this. So we will never know whether this, the intelligence on him, he was not white. The police said he was running and jumping over the turnstiles in the tube, which wasn't true at all. And we can never know, whether the hands of the STS are covered in blood. I'm going to be pretty blunt. You can hear from my voice. I got so angry by everything what I heard. He keeps going around things, wiggling himself out of things, not taking any responsibility. Well, he has gone as far the inquiry will think that I was useless, or I can't remember the words he said.
You have to decide just how stupid I actually was.
Yeah, things like that. And he said with the Charles de Mendes campaign, I advised them not to go near it, but my advice or orders were not often heeded, or words of similar. And it's just he's sitting there and making him, okay, I was a fool, I was useless, and still we did very good work.
We heard a lot about the work of Dr. Ian Palmer and the psychological assessments that took place. We saw a report that said that actually the main reason for it was, as a DCI Dell said, was to exhaust every possible avenue, but prevent any duty of care claims in the future, in reference to the case brought by Peter Francis and HM123 against the Met Police for lack of duty of care. One of the most interesting parts of that was we had a very rare thing at the inquiry. We had reference to a closed officer, HN91. HN91 was deployed into an area we're not allowed to talk about. He deceived a woman into a sexual relationship while he was deployed. He not only did that, but he also told the woman who he actually was and what his unit was doing. He disclosed that information to Dr. Ian Palmer during one of these psychological assessments, psychiatric assessments, rather. Dr. Ian Palmer did, according to Dell claimed that this was the first he'd heard of it. Oh no, not another one. Acted surprised, acted betrayed, looked quite upset. Certainly it's the first time that I'd heard of it. I was informed by some other people that actually it's turned up in some of the paperwork, which I obviously haven't read.
Yeah, we knew about it as far back as 2015, based on his risk assessment, his ask for anonymity and why. And he kind of spelled all that out. The fact that he had, like, after the relationship with his partner finished, like, so much for a stable background, he started a relationship. It was not with an activist, and the fact that he told her what he was doing was all in his his. Yeah, I had forgotten about it.
Okay, that's also bad then. Yeah. But I mean, interestingly, Dell claimed that was a complete shock to him that Palmer had never told him. He went to great lengths about the whole way that it was meant to work with Ian Palmer is that if there was anything about sexual liaisons, criminality, or hard drugs, then that would be passed on to him, and the doctor-client confidentiality would be at an end. Obviously, this didn't work. He said the whole point of the psychiatric assessments was for discipline. He wanted to know if officers were doing things that he told them not to do.
Yeah, so much for care and aftercare. He also said that it was difficult to get the officers to go to see a shrink because it was all about, what is that, reputation?
Yeah, but this lack of confidentiality, which I mean,
it's also like the sort of the idea to sort of explain that you need to go to a shrink goes against all the macho, overall fine image that the blokes in the unit had.
Well, I think you could just stop at blokes in that. Yeah. But anyway, I mean, it's there was a lot about those psychiatric assessments and how that they were the actual reason for them, which clearly had very little to do with welfare. We were also shown one of two reports that were commissioned in 2004. One, there was the Walton report and the Crane report. It appears like the inquiry hasn't been able to get hold of the Crane report, but the Walton report was shown. It had 8 recommendations for changes to the SDS. Dell claims that he never saw it. It was just for Janet Williams' eyes, never shown to him. We were shown the 8 recommendations and in handwritten had next to the points shown to Dell. He said, "Oh, it's like reading it for the first time." Yeah, I mean,
oh my God, it's so tiring. He's just denying things until he asks so many times, and it's getting more and more arrogant in the way he asks Sarah Hemingway, like, "Have you got proof of that?" "Oh, I thought you were going to ask that." "Yeah, but just show me the report that that has the claims that you put to me." He's like, it's like it's also a way of winning time and a way of like taking longer to say, "Can't recall." May have been, but can't recall. It's really getting very irritating, and also we know this was like I think his deployment was until 2005.
Yes,
and the unit was shut down in 2008. So it was like
7 really.
Yeah, so like in that period, it was very clear that there were like all kind of reorganizations going on. That special branch was no longer existing. So there was so much known. There was so much about how defunct the SDS in fact was, that his only way seems to be saying he had no idea and then giving a totally unbelievable, stupid picture of himself and what he was. You really, I've said this before. What was he doing all day? What was he doing all day? They were sitting in the same office. Other people knew things that he didn't know. There were only 2 to 5 officers in the office at any given time. Of course, they talked about everything.
Of course, yeah. I mean, it's laughable. And we got into this relationship, though, or this frosty relationship, as he put it, that he had with the commander of Special Branch towards the end, Jeanette Williams.
First female commander of Special Branch.
Yeah, and he was asked, was there any sexism or misogyny towards her? Not at all.
No.
Oh gosh, no. Oh gosh, no. The very idea. No.
Couldn't look her up in a room.
I mean, he claimed that it was personal, that she had an issue with him. It wasn't that he had an issue with her, that she had an issue with him. He got quite irate. He said, now is not the place for me to vent. What was it? To let off steam. That was it, to let off steam.
And then he started doing it.
Yeah.
He said the first time that he met her, she came to see him, shook his hand and said, we've met, and walked off. And he was like,
yeah, he didn't like that.
Just happened?
He didn't like that. He didn't like that a senior member of management didn't have the time for him to like build a personal relationship with him. Yeah. I mean, I think it's almost like if we see Sarah Hemingway at the dispatch box, or it's not the dispatch box, is it? But if we see her at the front about to question the witness, then it's like, oh, this guy doesn't like strong women.
Yeah. It's a very wise choice of the inquiry to put strong women against misogynist men. It has worked every single time. Things are so simple sometimes.
There was a lot else that he was questioning. A lot of them were only short, sort of like, here's this thing, what's your take on this, and a very quick answer, and then we moved on. There's so many. I mean, I'm struggling to remember them because we went through so many. But also, I'm aware of the time and that we were going back in soon for the further questions, the Rule 10s.
Let's talk about it later.
Yes, we'll do a full roundup at the end, which it probably won't be that long. I mean, I don't know how many further questions there are.
We were promised that it would be finished before the football, so we could all be home in time for football. I've got no idea.
Go Dr. Congo. Go Dr. Congo. Right. We'll see you again at the end. Thanks for joining us. I'll